Will and Power, and I'm Summer El-Shahat. On today's program, bad blood in the Philippines.
They do not observe any chain of command. They are not accountable. They are the ones who are really opening a lot of abuses and violence among the communities.
For many Filipinos, the southern island of Mindanao offered the dream of a better future based on its rich mineral and agricultural resources. This led to an influx of Christian settlers under a massive transmigration program promoted by the predominantly Catholic government. It promised land to landless farmers. But the settlement program has led to a brutal conflict between the original Muslim inhabitants and the new settlers. For 40 years, Muslim rebels, known as the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or MILF, have been battling government troops for a separatist Muslim homeland, in a conflict that's now claimed more than 100,000 lives. The Philippine government has also long relied on Christian paramilitary and vigilante groups to fight these so-called insurgents. And recently, after the collapse of a peace agreement that was 11 years in the making, the conflict has again escalated. As filmmaker Orlando de Guzman reports, this renewed conflict in Mindanao is breathing new life into Christian vigilante groups.
For these Christian farmers in Mindanao, going to the fields requires the logistics of a small military operation. Before they can plow the fields, they must first secure the area. Rebels from the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or MILF, are not far away, and they've attacked their village repeatedly. With no police or military presence here, the Christian villagers have formed their own militia force, and no one ventures out to their land without these advanced scouts, and their weapons are at the ready.
All this land came from our ancestors. All this land was titled by our grandparents. They secured the deeds. I'm happy to show the deeds to the Muslims. We bought this land from their grandparents.
The village of Bagolibas in North Cotabato province straddles a no-man's land between Christian and Muslim communities. Both sides have been locked in a land dispute that stretches back 2 generations.
In the 1940s, 1950s, our forefathers were brought here by the government in a program. They promised us that this land will be ours and we can till this land, we can develop this land. The demand of the MILF is to get back from us the land that we legally acquired from their forefathers. We strongly believe that this war will not end.
This land dispute has dragged in these village militias, the Philippine military, and the MILF. This village is one of many flashpoints in Mindanao. Christians were once minorities on this island. Muslims, as well as indigenous tribes, held large tracts of land here. That all changed when the Philippine government annexed Mindanao after the Second World War. It began an aggressive resettlement program for Christians from the north.
This particular resettlement program has been backed up by a very strong military approach, a very strong military apparatus, wherein these migrants were also given arms to be able to protect themselves from in this area. So that has been sustained even up to now.
Now, Muslims are the minorities. The war in Mindanao has been going on for so long that few people seem to remember what the fighting is all about. I'm a journalist who grew up in the northern Philippines, and over the past 10 years I've traveled south to Mindanao to report on the conflict. This time, I've come to find out about a long-running government policy of recruiting and arming civilian militias, one of the most enduring legacies of the conflict here. Across Mindanao, civilians are being given the jobs of the military and police at an alarming rate. In North Cotabato province, I met these new recruits joining a military-backed militia program. They're normally trained for 3 months, but this training program has been accelerated to a month and a half to fill a security vacuum. Their military trainer, who didn't want his face shown, said there's a rush to deploy them to the front lines.
Dito sa area natin, hindi naman natin mapagkailan na
It's no secret that civilians here are used to handling weapons. They need it for their livelihood and security. So what better way to ensure that we can control them than have them join the military-sponsored militia force?
More than 1,000 new militias will graduate from this program in the next few months. The goal is to have these militias hold the ground against Muslim rebels once the regular government forces pull out. Many of these recruits are pulled from informal village militias.
They come by different names, but I think the very basic description here that is common to them is that they are civilians. They do not observe any chain of command. They are not accountable, and they are not also trained. And so because of these characteristics, they are the ones who are really opening a lot of abuses and violence among the communities.
In the 1970s and 80s, a brutal civil war spread across Muslim and Christian communities in Mindanao. The mainly Christian government used these militias to fight Muslim political rivals. The militias were first used against the Muslims, then against communist sympathizers. These militias dispatched shocking abuses against the civilian population. One of the most notorious of these vigilante groups was known as the Tad-Tad, or Chop Chop, a name they got from their habit of chopping up their victims.
So this is one victim of the Tad-Tad, the Chop Chop group, fanatical group. They were tied up, brought in front of the chapel, and shot. And then that's the wife and children find the body of the father.
Peter Jeremiah is a Catholic priest who for 30 years has been documenting another Christian militia known as the Ilaga, or the Rats.
Many of these groups were organized by former military men or by military officers. These were the Ilaga at the height of the Ilaga. Even local knives were used, and then also they were given firearms. So they continued this way of fighting rebel movements by having civilians hunting for suspects among the civilians.
His colleague, a young Italian priest, was murdered when Father Peter began exposing the brutality of the Ilaga militia.
That's how we found the body of Padre Tullio with blood all around, and then the brains had been spread around. But Padre Tullio still had his hands across his chest, which was the position when he was shot. And then he fell down, and he remained with the hands crossed.
Militias like the Ilaga quickly spun into fanatical Christian cults, combining folk mythology with Catholic beliefs.
Now, this is a question that embarrasses church leaders, especially Catholic priests, because they use the Catholic practices or the Christian practices to justify the atrocities and violence. There is a background of beliefs that there are so many forces of nature, good or evil, that can be called upon to add to the human power, especially in fighting. So through these rituals, suppose they have the oil, the amulets. They say that these are blessed and with prayers, and then the power of the spirits, the power of God will protect the those who wear this. You have to say certain prayers using also formulas in Latin, and then to build up their courage, and then to be ready to go and fight.
Those who joined the Ilaga shared an apocalyptic view of the world, one in which non-believers, which included Muslims, were enemies worthy of death.
Sometimes they display the atrocities. In public, they would roast the body of a Muslim, and then also practicing cannibalism. They would eat human flesh and force others to eat, with this kind of expectation that this would make them very courageous. They would not be afraid of anything because of this kind of extra power through atrocities.
Today, the Ilaga has been disbanded, but some of their members have been integrated into government-sanctioned militias. They stay in these outposts, side by side with government troops.
Sa una ka timpo Ilaga, libo-libo ka mga talinga na kauna mo. Matuto din na. Ay, lami lagi. Kasabi na sa mga tigulang, ya mag-ain ka ng tainga, mag-aswang ka. Kahadi ko magtuo. Ako nga pila na katainga na kain ko, wala mong mag-aswang. Ako nagulang na akong tao, pero hindi ta ko abusador ng pagkatao. Kadua lang ko ibatang paon, hindi pa ko magbalos. Okay, ako salig ko lang sa tasan. Ang sa taas lang, amo ang maghahom sa tao nga tunto.
This built up this kind of sickness to cause terror through atrocities. And so in many places, the tribals abandoned many territories. The Muslim also abandoned, and the group of Ilagas spread in many different areas. And many of the lands were taken over. And so it became, the main interest was to control the land.